The moment you start matching an avoidance energy, you stop fighting them and begin fighting yourself. There is a quiet kind of pain that few people talk about. It does not come from screaming arguments or dramatic endings. It comes from silence, from waiting, from staring at a phone that never lights up, from telling yourself that if they can pull away, then you can pull away even farther. It feels strong. It feels like taking your power back. It feels like the only language they will understand. But beneath that feeling is a question that keeps growing louder. Why does none of it bring peace? If those words touch something deep inside you, then this message was meant to find you. Many people believe relationships fall apart because one person cared too much and the other cared too little. The truth is often far more complicated. Sometimes two wounded hearts are speaking different emotional languages. One reaches for closeness when fear appears. The other runs from closeness when fear appears. Both believe they are protecting themselves. Both believe they are doing the right thing. Yet both end up feeling unseen, exhausted, and deeply alone. That is why matching an avoidance distance almost never creates the result you secretly hope for. It does not create understanding. It does not awaken love. It does not magically make someone realize your worth. Instead, it often creates two people standing behind invisible walls, each waiting for the other to move first. The painful part is that this strategy feels intelligent. It feels emotionally mature. Friends may even encourage it. Social media often celebrates it. Countless voices repeat the same advice. Match their energy. Give them the same treatment. Make them feel your absence. Teach them a lesson. But there is a hidden cost that almost nobody talks about. Every time you abandon your natural way of loving just to mirror someone else's fear, you slowly disconnect from yourself. The relationship is no longer leading your decisions. Your wounds are. Most people will never hear this, not because it is hidden, but because they stop listening the moment the truth challenges their pride. That sentence alone has the power to change the way you see every difficult relationship you have ever experienced. This conversation is not about blaming avoidant people. It is also not about blaming yourself. Real healing begins the moment blame loses its grip. Because beneath emotional distance, emotional chasing, silence, anxiety, and confusion, there is something much deeper happening. Your nervous system is trying to protect you. Their nervous system is trying to protect them. The problem is that protection and connection are not always the same thing. Many people spend years believing they are fighting for love when they are actually fighting against fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, fear of being controlled, fear of being left behind. Those fears quietly shape conversations, reactions, and even silence without anyone realizing it. The beautiful part is that once you understand this hidden pattern, everything begins to look different. Suddenly, their withdrawal does not automatically define your value. Suddenly, your urge to chase or withdraw no longer feels like destiny. Suddenly, you begin seeing choices where you once saw only emotional survival. But before I tell you that, stay with me, because what comes next will completely change how you see this. There is one mistake that emotionally intelligent people make every single day without realizing it. It looks like confidence from the outside, but inside it quietly feeds loneliness. It convinces you that protecting your heart means closing your heart. Those are not the same thing. Real strength has never been about becoming emotionally colder than the person who hurt you. Real strength is remaining connected to your values even when someone else disconnects from theirs. That is a lesson psychology has slowly uncovered, but spiritual wisdom has whispered for centuries. Every painful relationship places a mirror in front of us, not to shame us, not to punish us, but to reveal the places within ourselves that are still searching for safety in the wrong direction. This is why some people leave an avoidant relationship stronger, wiser, and deeply peaceful, while others leave carrying the same pain into the next relationship. The person changes, the pattern does not. Over the next few minutes, you will discover why avoidant behavior activates emotions that often have roots much deeper than the relationship itself. You will understand why matching someone's energy feels satisfying at first but quietly steals your peace over time. You will learn why emotional withdrawal almost never creates genuine intimacy. More importantly, you will discover a completely different response, one that protects your heart without hardening it, strengthens your boundaries without feeding your ego, and allows you to reclaim your peace whether someone stays or walks away. This is not about becoming passive. It is not about accepting poor treatment. It is not about waiting endlessly for someone to change. It is about discovering a kind of inner stability that no one's silence can shake. Because the greatest victory in any relationship is never convincing another person to choose you. The greatest victory is reaching a place where you no longer abandon yourself while hoping someone else finally sees your worth. If that is the kind of life, peace, and emotional freedom you are searching for, then welcome to the channel. This is a place where psychology meets spiritual wisdom, where emotional healing becomes practical, and where every conversation is designed to help you build a stronger relationship with yourself first. If that journey speaks to your heart, subscribe and join this growing community, because some of the deepest truths about love, healing, and inner peace are still waiting just ahead. The strangest part of emotional distance is that it can feel like progress when it is actually the beginning of a silent war. The moment two people decide, if they can pull away, then so can I, the relationship changes in ways neither person notices at first. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people make the biggest mistake, and the damage often begins long before anyone realizes it. At first, the silence feels powerful. You stop sending the first message. They stop checking in. You wait. They wait. Days pass, then weeks. Both people quietly believe the other person will eventually break. From the outside, it looks calm. Inside, it is anything but calm. There is constant overthinking, questions with no answers, stories the mind keeps repeating. Each person believes they are protecting their heart, yet each day creates more emotional distance than the day before. This is where silence changes its purpose. Silence can be healthy when it creates space for reflection and healing, but silence can also become a weapon when it is used to control another person's emotions. It becomes a silent message that says, "You come to me first," or "You need to earn my attention." Neither person says these words aloud, yet both feel them. The relationship slowly becomes less about love and more about who will surrender first. There is a lesser-known psychological finding that makes this even more surprising. Research on close relationships suggests that the human brain often experiences prolonged emotional rejection in ways that overlap with physical pain. That means the body can react to emotional silence as though it is facing a real threat, even when no words are being spoken. The nervous system does not simply hear silence, it interprets it. That is why your heartbeat changes, your sleep becomes restless, and your thoughts refuse to slow down. The painful part is that both people often believe they are standing in strength. In reality, both are standing in fear. One fears being rejected if they reach out. The other fears losing control if they become vulnerable. The result is emotional deadlock. Nobody feels safe enough to move. Nobody feels understood. Two hearts wait for permission that neither is willing to give. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. The greatest damage in many relationships is not caused by cruel words. It is caused by wounded people silently waiting for each other to heal wounds they never created. If those words feel personal, it is because many caring people fall into this pattern without ever intending to. You wanted peace. You wanted respect. You wanted to stop chasing someone who seemed emotionally unavailable. But somewhere along the way, protecting yourself quietly became punishing yourself. Every day spent pretending you no longer cared required you to silence the part of yourself that simply wanted honesty, clarity, and connection. Then something even more dangerous begins. Emotional pride quietly enters the relationship. Pride whispers that reaching out first means losing. Pride says kindness is weakness. Pride tells you that whoever cares less has more power. But love has never worked by those rules. Fear does. The ego is incredibly convincing because it speaks in the language of protection. It tells you distance proves your worth. It tells you indifference is confidence. It tells you that making someone miss you will make them value you. Yet genuine self-respect does not need performance. It does not depend on emotional games or carefully calculated silence. Trying to teach someone a lesson through withdrawal rarely teaches the lesson you intended. More often, it teaches both people to become even more afraid of vulnerability. It deepens misunderstanding instead of creating understanding, and every time wounded pride wins, authentic connection loses. And what I am about to share next, nobody talks about this, because the greatest battle was never between you and the avoidant. It has always been the hidden battle happening inside the avoidant's own heart, and understanding that changes everything. One of the biggest misunderstandings in relationships is believing that distance always means the absence of love. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it means something far more complicated. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people completely misread avoidant behavior, and that misunderstanding keeps the cycle alive. Many avoidant people do not wake up planning to hurt someone. Their emotional world often feels like a constant conflict between wanting connection and fearing what connection demands. Part of them longs to be understood, accepted, and loved. Another part becomes overwhelmed the moment closeness begins to feel emotionally intense. The closer someone gets, the louder their inner alarm can become. From the outside, it looks like they are losing interest. Inside, they may simply be trying to quiet a nervous system that has mistaken intimacy for danger. There is a surprising fact that rarely gets discussed. Studies on attachment suggest that many avoidantly attached people show signs of emotional stress in their bodies even when they appear calm and emotionally detached. Their words may sound controlled, but their heart rate and stress responses often tell a completely different story. In other words, emotional distance does not always mean emotional peace. Sometimes the calmest face is hiding the loudest internal struggle. This does not excuse harmful behavior. It simply explains it. Understanding someone's emotional pattern is very different from accepting repeated disrespect. That distinction changes everything. Compassion should never require self-abandonment. You can understand another person's fears without sacrificing your own emotional well-being. Perhaps this is the part you needed to hear the most. Their inability to stay emotionally present is not proof that you were unlovable. Their withdrawal is often connected to battles that began long before you entered their life. That does not make your pain any less real. It simply means your worth was never determined by someone else's capacity to receive love. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. Healing does not begin when another person finally understands your heart. Healing begins when you stop asking wounded people to decide your value. The moment that truth settles into your heart, something remarkable begins to change. You stop chasing explanations that never arrive. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's emotional availability. You begin asking a different question. Instead of wondering how to make them respond differently, you begin asking how you can respond differently. That question opens the door to real power. True power is not controlling another person's behavior. It is regulating your own emotions when everything inside you wants to react. Emotional regulation is not suppressing your feelings or pretending nothing hurts. It is creating enough inner space that your next decision comes from wisdom instead of survival. That kind of strength cannot be taken away by silence, rejection, or uncertainty. Peace is far stronger than emotional reaction because peace allows you to see clearly. Reaction narrows your vision. Peace expands it. Reaction demands immediate relief. Peace is willing to wait for lasting truth. When your emotions no longer control your choices, you become someone who responds with intention instead of impulse. This is also where boundaries become deeply misunderstood. A boundary is not a punishment designed to make someone suffer. It is not silent treatment dressed up as self-respect. A healthy boundary simply says, I will not abandon myself in order to keep this relationship. It protects your peace without trying to control another person's decisions. That quiet difference is where emotional freedom begins. Responding instead of reacting may look simple, but it changes every relationship you will ever experience. You listen before assuming. You pause before speaking. You choose honesty instead of emotional games. And even if another person never changes, you leave every conversation knowing you remained faithful to your own values. And what I am about to share next, nobody talks about this, but it changes everything. Because the greatest transformation does not happen when the avoidant comes back. It happens when you become the kind of person who no longer needs anyone else's emotional distance to define your inner peace. The greatest turning point in your life begins the moment you stop asking, "How do I match their energy?" and start asking, "Who do I become in the middle of this?" Do not skip this part, because this single shift separates temporary emotional victories from lasting inner peace. Emotional maturity changes every relationship, not because it forces other people to behave differently, but because it changes the energy you bring into every interaction. A mature heart no longer treats silence as a competition. It no longer believes that caring is weakness or that vulnerability is failure. Instead, it understands something deeply freeing. You can remain calm without becoming cold. You can remain kind without becoming a people pleaser. You can walk away without carrying bitterness. There is a fascinating fact that many people never hear. Studies on emotional regulation suggest that calm emotional states can influence the tone and direction of difficult conversations more than winning an argument ever can. The human nervous system naturally responds to emotional stability. This does not guarantee another person will change, but it does mean that your inner state becomes your greatest source of influence instead of your greatest weakness. Secure energy does not look dramatic. It is often surprisingly quiet. It does not chase someone who keeps running. It also does not punish someone for being afraid. Secure people ask honest questions instead of making painful assumptions. They express their feelings without demanding that others carry responsibility for them. They respect themselves enough to leave unhealthy situations, yet they leave without needing revenge to feel complete. Perhaps you have spent months trying to convince someone to see your value. That effort can become exhausting because no amount of explaining can heal another person's unresolved fears. The more you fight to prove your worth, the easier it becomes to forget that your worth never needed proof in the first place. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. You were never broken. You were never lost. You were always exactly where you needed to be in order to discover the version of yourself that no longer asks fear for permission to feel worthy. That realization creates practical changes in everyday life. Instead of checking your phone every few minutes, you return your attention to your own purpose. Instead of creating stories about why someone has become distant, you communicate clearly once and then allow their actions to reveal the truth. Instead of trying to manage another person's emotions, you become responsible for your own peace. These are small decisions, but together they create extraordinary freedom. Healing has never been about convincing someone else to choose you. Healing is about becoming someone who chooses themselves with honesty, compassion, and courage every single day. When you become that person, relationships stop feeling like emotional survival. They become a place where love can grow naturally instead of being forced through fear. And that leads to the lesson hidden beneath everything we have explored together. Every silent treatment, every anxious night, every unanswered message, every emotional game has been pointing toward one truth. Real strength is not found in emotional retaliation. It is found in emotional security. When your peace depends on making someone else react, your peace is no longer yours. But when your peace comes from within, no silence has the power to steal it. The deepest spiritual lesson is beautifully simple. Every difficult relationship gives you two choices. You can become more fearful, or you can become more awake. You can continue repeating emotional patterns, or you can become the person who finally ends them. That choice belongs to you, and it has always belonged to you. So stop trying to win emotional battles that leave everyone wounded. Stop measuring love by who reaches out first or who appears to care less. Choose honesty over games. Choose boundaries over punishment. Choose self-respect over pride. Choose peace over the temporary satisfaction of proving a point, because authentic love grows where fear no longer leads the heart. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, stay connected by subscribing to the channel. Together we explore psychology, emotional healing, spiritual growth, and the timeless wisdom that helps us build stronger relationships with others by first transforming the relationship we have with ourselves. And even though this conversation ends here, your real journey begins with the next choice you make when life gives you another chance to respond differently. That quiet moment may change everything.